Hello and welcome. This is the first part of the Write Cleaner Code series. In this particular part, I'm going to talk about variables. The main purpose of the series is to develop sets of patterns to improve your code writing skills so it's clean. And what does the clean code actually means? In general, I would define it by three general principles. So the first one is code is easy to read. The second one, code can be reused if needed. And the third one is it's easy to be refactored by others. So to start with the variable subject, I'm going to talk about rules when naming them. As the first example under the don't comment, I will just write a variable called random, which will keep a string with random email address. So this is clearly a don't do situation right here, as the variable isn't saying anything about what it holds. Just below, I'm going to add a do comment where I will be keeping all my good practices, and the random const will be renamed to an email. And just by looking at the variable name, you already know what it is. For the second example, I'm going to use the array. Often in the code, especially when we are looping through, there is that variable called arr or array, which is meaningless. And this is what I'm just doing right now under the don't column, just adding random car names to it. And just to reflect it in the good pattern area, let's just say what it is. So I'll name it cars. It could be also a car brands to be more precise, but I think you get the point of this. I guess naming variables isn't that difficult as long as we call them by what they are. When naming, remember to use camel case, and also remember that names should start with a letter. And these are two extra rules here that you should follow when naming your variables. The code examples for every step in this video can be found in my repo. The link has been added to the description. The series are going to grow, so every week there should be an update with a new branch in the repo. Next up, I'm going to talk about using searchable values. Sometimes in a code you could spot a random number or a string that needs you to figure out what is going on. As a bad example, I'll create a function that is supposed to calculate working days in a month. Just going to add a const working days in month, and this function will return 5 times 4. Obviously the example is quite simple, but imagine if your function was bigger, the difficulty of reading it would increase. The name of a function is good, but we don't really know what these numbers mean. So right above the function, I'm going to add a little comment saying no one knows what are these numbers. As a good example, I'm going to just create a comment do, and underneath I'll name my function exactly the same, but the return of it will be slightly different. So I'm going to put these numbers in variables, and note that each variable that is hard-coded is going to be written in the uppercase with the underscores. So the first variable is called weeks in month, and it equals 4, and the second variable is working days, and it equals 5. That way, by adding the numbers to variables and defining the names to say what they are, it's extremely easy to understand what is happening in the function. So just to finish off the function, as the return, I'm going to add these variables back in. Also, don't mind the function highlights. My IDE is complaining about using two functions with the same name. Also, a little comment that hard-coded values should be capitalized. Next up, I'm going to talk about avoiding adding unneeded context, and this can be spotted when defining objects in arrays. To show you an example of it, I'll just start with showing a but button first. So in here, I'm going to create an array called cars. So as the first object, I'll add in car brands, and the second object will be called car price. And then I'm just going to copy the first object and paste it back in within that array. Just change the car brand to Mercedes and adjust the price as well. And underneath, I'll create a function that updates the price of each car in array, so you can understand better why naming your objects as car brand and car price is just bad. So I'm going to loop through cars and add an extra price to each car price. It even sounds bad. So I hope you can see that the context object in this example is unnecessary, and in a larger function, it might cause major confusion. To fix this, I'm going to refactor the cars array just below, right underneath the do comment. So clearly, we do not need car brand and car price objects. As we already know, this is a car object, which means it can be called brand and price. And for the sake of it, I'll just create the same function called update price. So you will see that return value readability has improved. So in here, it will be almost the same. So I want to loop through each car in the cars array. For that, I will be using for each array method. And as a return, it will be car.price plus price. Simple as that, we have deleted unnecessary context out of the array. Next up, I will talk about using default params in your functions. This is pretty useful, as well as it will cut down the code a bit and improve the readability. Pretty crucial with more complex functions. So obviously, starting with a but pattern, writing a function that's supposed to take us to a path. And if path is not defined, then navigate to random path. This example can be cut down by using default params. So right below, I'm gonna add in comment do and create almost the same function. So const navigate to path, and in the brackets, I will define the default path. So equals random path to start with, and inside of your function, you can provide some random code. And also I said return, you should provide a path, which I forgot about in this video. But I hope you get the point of providing the default param. And again, this improves the readability. This is the end of the variables part. In the next episode, I will talk about writing cleaner code when using objects. Thank you for watching.